What can you do when you find yourself in a situation of domestic violence? Let's be honest, there aren't a lot of options because physical abuse is unacceptable. Hitting, pushing, slapping, it's not okay. No matter what the cause is, such manifestations of aggression are not an option. It's not normal to feel unsafe at home and afraid to go back. You should not have to worry about every word, action, and breath you take. First, it is important to remember you are not to blame for what is happening to you or the violence that has occurred. Responsibility for physical aggression rests solely with the aggressor, period. Secondly, talking is great. If you feel threatened or your partner has overstepped their boundaries and started to get physical with you, it is always good to talk about it and then let them know. But you should also be alert to your situation. If the behavior is repeated, it is highly unlikely that further conversations will help change the situation. Let's look at how the typical cycle of violence works. At the beginning, the problems gradually accumulate. The tension builds up. The aggressor often criticizes and insults his victim, makes excessive demands, and makes the other party feel guilty. At the same time, he will justify himself by the fact that he is physically and mentally exhausted. While this is occurring, many women usually try to be compliant so as to not escalate the situation. They mistakenly believe that it will somehow help prevent violence from occurring. Then an act of violence takes place directly. This is always a big emotional outburst. In addition to physical contact, it often includes threats, intimidation, and accusations. This is the shortest phase of the cycle. After it comes reconciliation. The aggressor seems to wake up. He feels an semblance of guilt and promises that this will not happen again. He may even apologize for his behavior. But do not flatter yourself. In many ways, this happens only because he knows that what he has done is a criminal offense. In addition, the aggressor is afraid that the victim will leave him. But he really needs her to diffuse his aggression. Sometimes the aggressor can deny the seriousness of the incident, try to minimize it, or even blame the victim for everything that happened. Some even go as far to manipulate their victims by suggesting that they will harm themselves should the victim decide to leave them. In some cases, finances and children are used as a means of manipulation. As a result, victims often remain in order to extinguish the conflict. This is followed by a so-called honeymoon phase. The aggressor can seem amazingly transformed, showing love, care, and special affection. He can give gifts and seem the best man in the world. It is difficult to imagine that such a person would do something terrible. This, in turn, gives the victim tremendous hope that things will finally be different, making it incredibly difficult for her to leave him. This stage is the most dangerous for the victim. Here, she forgets about the violence and begins to think that the cycle will not repeat itself. However, gradually the tension builds up again and everything repeats itself. In most cases, the intervals between the phases are shortened, and relapses of violence become more frequent. In some cases, the frequency of violence does not increase, but its peak becomes especially acute. The outbursts of anger are brighter, and the beatings are more severe. A good example of what this cycle looks like can be seen in the first season of the show, Big Little Lies. Did this cycle sound familiar to you? If so, even remotely, then I have bad news for you. The first thing I want to say right away is that you need to leave this relationship. There are no ifs, ands, or buts here. The abuser will not change if you continue to play his game or try to stay in your best behavior around him. But you already know that yourself, right? I repeat once again, this is not your fault. Yes, this is a problem, but it can and should be dealt with. Remember, your life and health are at stake, and perhaps the life and health of your children as well. You can get out of the vicious cycle of violence at any stage. The way out is to change your behavior and abandon your usual role. It is important to make it clear that you cannot be treated that way. However, it should be borne in mind that all situations of domestic violence are potentially life-threatening. I understand that asserting your boundaries can be very daunting and risky. Therefore, it will be most effective to consult a crisis center on how best to act in your specific situation. It is vital for you to have a rescue plan in case the situation takes a turn for the worst. Know who to turn to, where to go, who can help, up to the point of having a saved up amount of money and a bag with documents and everything you need ready to go. Remember, security is the foundation on which relationships are built. And if you do not feel secure, then you need to leave, no matter how hard it is. Because your life is the most precious thing.